When someone forms a business, they have about four options in determining how they want to set it up. First of all, they can engage in what we call a sole proprietorship. In a sole proprietorship, one person owns it, they own all the equipment, they probably work out of their home, or they may have a rental space somewhere where they work alone, or have a secretary, whatever. But they're small, and it's one owner. Start adding in people, you end up with a partnership. A partnership means that two or more people engage in business activity together. They often do this to capitalize on each other's strengths. One person might be really good at marketing, another person might be really good at accounting. One guy may be great at finding new clients. There may be one person who is particularly good at doing the actual business activity, whether it's creating websites, a product, building a product, whatever, working on equipment, so forth, you name it. Typically with a partnership, they should probably go to a lawyer and have a legal agreement, because there are a lot of things that can happen within a partnership. If a partner dies, if one of them wants to bring in one of their children or their spouse, and these can cause all kinds of conflicts, as you can imagine, mostly sort of personality conflicts. It does help in a partnership to kind of share the load. If you think about the difference between a partnership and a sole proprietorship, if a person goes on vacation, and if it's just them, guess what? Their business closes for that time, so they might not go on vacation. They may feel that they're tied to their business all the time. In a partnership, some of that burden can be shared across, and as a matter of fact, all kinds of business burdens, the worrying about finances, pulling together money, all of those things can be ameliorated from the sole proprietorship if you choose to go into partnership. But again, with a partnership, you're going to borrow other people's problems and get all the problems that come with working with other people. Of course, you can incorporate. By incorporating, it means that you file some specific documents of incorporation. You have to have bylaws and some other documents, and you file those with the state. Just because you incorporate doesn't mean you actually have to sell stock on the stock market, so don't be confused about that. But there still would be what we would call stockholders, because even if it's just the owner, they would be the 100% owner of the company. The good thing about the corporation is that the corporation is absolved of sort of the responsibility. It becomes a legal person. So if the business causes harm to somebody, all of the individuals that work inside of the business, including the person who started it, their assets, for instance, would not be attached. Obviously, there could be some legal liability, but when it comes to the assets of individuals within a corporation, they would not lose the money that they had invested in the company to this problem. I'm not doing a very good job of explaining this, but I think that if you think about the difference between a sole proprietorship, where you again have an owner and they do have 100% ownership, but if something happens, if they lose money, or if they have some problem with a customer, they could lose their home because of that. That won't happen in an incorporation. They won't lose their home. Yes, they might lose cash that they invested in the company, because if the company goes under, they may not gain any capital gains from the growth of the company, but their homes and boats and houses and cars would not be taken, or their other bank accounts cleaned out, which could happen in a sole proprietorship. The fourth type of business is a fairly new one. It's called an LLC, a limited liability company. And what it does is it capitalizes on the best parts of the corporation and the partnership. And in the limited liability corporation or company, they can take this, they get to opt into the tax status of the corporation or the partnership. Typically one would choose the partnership because that tax is usually on the individual type basis, so it would be a lower percentage of tax. Corporate tax in the United States is 35%. Those who pay all of that, obviously. But if the LLC is engages in some troubling activity, or something bad happens to it, it gets to kind of waive some of that liability. And again, the owners would not have their personal ownerships tapped into, again, their home, their cars, and so forth. Only the assets of the actual company would be involved in any paying of a lawsuit or problems like that. In the state of Virginia, you can actually form an LLC with one person. So a sole proprietorship can become an LLC. So that's actually very advantageous, and it's a form that I would recommend to an entrepreneur if I were advising them. In the state of Virginia, it also costs $100 to form an LLC, one-time fee to fill out the paperwork. The paperwork's online. It's a couple pages. It's really simple. And so forming an LLC really in Virginia couldn't be any easier. Obviously, all forms of business have to pay taxes. And if we go back a little bit and talk for a moment about that issue of taxes, sole proprietorships and partnerships, typically the income is taxed as at the individual tax rate, whatever that is in the IRS. But a corporation is taxed at 35%. And if you'll remember, the corporation is also bound by what we call double taxation, because when they pay dividends or when their stocks go up in price and there is a gain or a capital gain, then whoever owns that stock or whoever receives that dividend must also pay taxes on it. Currently, in 2011, the capital gains rate and the dividend rate are taxed at 15%. So, so while the money that a corporation earns, they pay all their expenses, they pay their corporate taxes to the federal and state and local governments. Then when they pay out dividends, whoever receives those dividends also has to pay taxes. So if you see that money has already been taxed once, the dividends is money that's left over after all expenses and taxes, and then more taxes are paid. So that's really not fair, but it is the way the current system is set up. So again, there are 4 ways that you can form a business in the United States. You can have a sole proprietorship, and I didn't mention this before, but a sole proprietorship means that you probably get a business license in your locality. It probably costs $20, $25, $30 to do so. Once you do that, of course, they will be expecting you to pay your local taxes in your county or city where you have just bought your license. Partnerships are usually taxed at the individual rates. Corporations, the corporate rate, and the LLC, there's an election where you get to choose which one, how you want to be taxed. And obviously, there are accounting principles and practices, and it would depend on the size of the LLC, how they might choose to negotiate their tax status. So again, 4 ways to form a business in a legal way.